What is lyricism? What makes an MC lyrical? That and more on today's episode. Welcome.
Music by Wicked Keys. Music by
If you're anything like me, you're a huge fan of lyricism. Whether you're a technical word wizard, an intricate storyteller, or the poetic social commentator, I was locked into whatever was being said. I was always fascinated with the skill it took to display any of the aforementioned styles. In today's episode, I wanted to dive into what lyricism is and what makes an MC lyrical. I'll be breaking down 3 styles that I notice whenever lyricism comes up in a conversation, they get mentioned. The reason I felt the need to do this is because in today's climate of hip-hop, I don't think the vast majority who consumes the art knows exactly what being lyrical is. I'm on YouTube just like you guys, and I hear some of the wildest takes on lyricism, so I felt compelled to throw in my 2 cents on the topic. I believe this also helps out with any future takes that I may have regarding lyricism, because you'll know exactly where I stand with it. So take a seat, grab a snack, a drink, and let's talk about our favorite genre, hip-hop, and why we have to know what lyricism is and what it means to hip-hop. Hit the like button, leave a comment and some feedback, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. I remember the first time I heard Rakim or Big Daddy Kane. I immediately noticed they were rapping extremely different from the other rappers out at the time. Both MCs were oozing with charisma, but I wasn't caught up with that. What really caught my attention is how they put their words together. The way they would bend words to make it rhyme within the scheme. The way they would rhyme syllables always impressed me, even as a child. I used to write down the lyrics of songs while they would play on the radio. Well, I would record my favorite songs onto a cassette and write the lyrics that way. A lot of stopping and rewinding. Man, I'm showing my age. Doing this is where I noticed the patterns they would use to come up with their schemes, whether it be a 2-bar pattern or a 4-bar pattern. Sometimes they would use a 1-bar pattern and somehow made it work. Many equate the skill with being lyrical. I think it's just one facet you should possess to be considered lyrical, but we'll discuss that a little later. Bear with me. A quote from Rakim when he was discussing his technical ability was, "I used to look at rhyming like solving a puzzle, figuring out how many different ways I could bend words to make them fit together." As you see, Rakim took great pride in solving the puzzle when it came to writing his rhymes. Rakim is considered one of the most lyrical MCs of all time. Some even say he's the godfather of a lot of MCs who came after him. Eminem, who is hands down the most technical MC in the current era of hip-hop, stated, "I try to cram as many syllables as I can within a bar, but make it sound effortless." We've seen Eminem practically abuse syllables on multiple occasions. Perhaps the most recent display of him massacring syllables can be found on his Kamikaze, Music to Be Murdered By, and the Death of Slim Shady projects. On each of these albums, like he's done in the past, he continues to show how skilled he is when it comes to putting syllables together and making it look effortless. Another quote from another lyricist I hold in high regard is, "I'm more into how you say it, not just what you say." That quote comes from the one and only Black Thought of the Roots. As a lyricist, Black Thought has had my attention since the mid-aughts and hasn't let go. One thing I can say about Black Thought as an MC is his delivery and breath control is insane. And yes, that is part of being a technical MC. Being able to say something crazy is one thing, but being able to say it with clarity and with some pizzazz means a lot as well. Black Thought is highly respected in the hip-hop field, not because the great records he puts out with the Roots, but also many know that his pen is nothing to play with. There are many other MCs who showcase this style like Hobson, Logic, Absol, and Coach Contra, so this style/skill is still alive and well. There are some MCs who may overdo it on the technical side, and that may turn some listeners off. There are times I feel Eminem overcompensates with the syllables just to show he still got it. My gripe with Hobson and Logic in the past was they were too focused on the technical skill and not the songwriting aspect. Recently, Logic has become a better songwriter, so I have to give him credit for that. When it comes to the skill in particular, I believe you have to find a happy balance between technical and just getting your rhymes off. I say that because the listeners are fickle, and if they hear too many syllables, they may just cut off the song. I'm speaking from experience. I've seen people literally get upset because the rhymes had too many syllables. Blew my mind, but I seen it. I'm sure you've heard people say, don't nobody want to hear that lyrical, spiritual, miracle crap. I know you've heard it before. That can be a combination of two things. The listener isn't really a fan of hip-hop that just wants mindless turn-up music, or the artist that they're listening to overcompensates to prove that they're a top-tier lyricist, and it turned off the listener. As I mentioned earlier, many consumers of hip-hop feel this is the only expression that deems you to be lyrical. I do not agree with that at all, and I'll discuss that later in the video. I wanted to show respect to this aspect of lyricism because I hear about this one the most.
Right now, I see hip hop doing a 360. Like it's going back to lyricism, going back to bars.
Yeah.
Cats want to hear things of substance versus just melodic, catchy little tunes and shit like that, people want to hear substance now.
I remember the first time I listened to The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. It's perhaps the first time I heard a story in rap form. Mona Lisa, The Children's Story were the two songs that truly introduced me to the Storyteller. I believe this style is grossly underrated. Very few storytellers get brought up in the conversation of who are the top tier lyricists of all time. I believe Slick Rick should be mentioned in every last list just as much as Nas. Ghostface Killer and Conway the Machine are also other MCs that I feel don't get enough respect for their storytelling ability. Being able to paint pictures that come to life in the listener's head is for sure peak lyricism. Or perhaps just telling a story, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, in rhyme form is impressive as well. The reason I believe it's peak lyricism is not everyone can tell a story and keep the audience's attention. Notorious B.I.G. had some of the best stories that I've heard on a song. Story to Tell, Niggas Bleed, and Warning are just some of the stories he told in song form. But again, many don't hold Biggie as a top-tier lyricist of all time, which I feel is a crime within itself. But I digress. Nas, perhaps the most well-known for storytelling, with songs like I Gave You Power and Black Girl Lost, stated, I want people to close their eyes and see what I see. That's what makes a rhyme real. Nas is perhaps one of the few storytellers that people revere within the culture of hip-hop, with songs like The Setup, Cop Shot the Kid, Done, and No Tears are just some of the tracks where Nas paints pictures and tells stories at an elite level. Another great quote from the legendary storyteller Slick Rick is, a good story stays with you longer than a punchline. Not a single lie told with this quote. I absolutely believe that a good story has more longevity than a punchline. One thing I learned about punchlines in rap is if you heard it once, you may just hear it again. That isn't the case when it comes to storytelling. A good story can last for decades. For example, if I'm correct, Children's Story by the aforementioned Slick Rick is 37 years old. If you were to play that song anywhere, I guarantee you will see head nods and people reciting the lyrics. Another MC that is a revered storyteller is the one and only Kendrick Lamar. Songs like Duckworth, Mother I Sober, How Much a Dollar Costs are just a few examples of Kendrick's storytelling skill. If you look at his album Good Kid, Mad City, the entire project is telling one cohesive story. I don't know too many MCs that have done that to the level of success that Kendrick has. K. Dot had stated, I always want to make music that speaks for the voiceless. My stories are for them. With that quote alone, it shows me how much Kendrick respects the storytelling aspect of rap. I can honestly say I've never heard anyone complain about an MC telling too many stories. I've heard gripes about the story not making any sense or just flat out boring. And I take that as more of a critique of the artist, not the particular style. Some of the MCs I mentioned in the previous section have great storytelling skills as well. For example, Eminem has displayed his storytelling skills on songs before, the most popular being Stan. Black Thought has also shown that he can flex with storytelling as well. Can the storytellers be technical? Absolutely. Well, the top tier storytellers who really love the genre and art form of hip-hop. For example, Kendrick can get as technical as any MC in the game now. With 616 in LA, he was able to tell a story and show off his technical skill as well. And do I really have to discuss how technical Nas can be when he elects to do so?
Yeah, I didn't think so.
The storytelling form of expression in hip-hop isn't really looked at as peak lyricism, and that's a shame. As I stated earlier, stories have lasting power. Slick Rick, perhaps the greatest storyteller of all time in hip-hop, said it best. A good story has more longevity than a punchline.
I don't really get mad at the young dudes who not super lyrical or be on a vibe wave. That's their time. That's what they're doing. And that's how they're doing it. It's just the fact that I tell any youth, any corner of the world, from any background you come from, you have to respect history or you have no future.
Ever a time when you're trying to write or produce a song, you suddenly get writer's block? If so, what do you do to overcome it and be able to write a good song?
A lot of times when I'm making a track, I may think of the hook first and not be able to write the rhyme on the spot. But most of the momentum comes from being in the studio. I mean, especially hip-hop artists will tell you that 90% of that comes from the energy from just being in the studio. It's that mad energy.
Sometimes I go through that, but I feel like it's a lot of lanes now. You feel me? So I feel like the lane I love is lyricism, is music you gotta rewind, you know what I mean, and get in tune with. But that's me, that's what I like, and, you know what I mean? But I feel like overall, it's so many lanes now, you could catch so many different moods, and it's all rap, right. You know what I'm saying? So I salute that, but I just
I remember when I first heard Brenda Got a Baby, Dear Mama by Tupac, or Lauryn Hill's debut album, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I thought to myself, why doesn't anyone ever look at these pieces of art as lyrical? As I stated prior, many just look at the technical aspect of rapping as the sole barometer or measuring tool to gauge lyricism. I truly believe that's a disservice to the Poetic and Social Commentator. I'm not saying that they're completely absolved from the lyricism conversation, because we have MCs like Kendrick Lamar, Nas, and J. Cole who can also dabble in a little bit of poetry and social commentary. Those guys are always mentioned when it comes to the conversation of lyricism. With some listeners, I believe that since they don't hear the syllables or the verses riddled with punchlines, they don't deem it lyrical. The reason I say that this aspect has to be deemed lyrical is because the emotions that it can invoke. Getting people to relate or agree on what you're discussing through music is extremely profound, especially if the artist never met the listener. To be able to connect with them through music because they relate to the topic or have gone through what the artist is highlighting on the song is truly powerful. One of Tupac's quotes regarding this style is, "I'm not saying I'm going to change the world, but I will spark the brain that will change the world." Tupac understood with his style he can touch people's hearts and souls through his music. I remember the impact that songs like Brenda Got a Baby and Dear Mama had when they released. Lauryn Hill's musical impact can be an entire episode by itself, due to her not being afraid to cover topics like black womanhood, racial equality, self-empowerment, among other topics. Her music was felt throughout the world. Lauryn Hill is another female MC that doesn't make everybody's lyricist list, but you will find her on some. A quote she had, which I loved, is, "Hip-hop starts out in the heart. It's about the emotions, the pain, the beauty, not just the words." Lauryn fully understood that music is in fact emotion put in notes and lyrics. She knew that if she tapped into the listener's emotion, the listener will never forget who she was or that song. J. Cole at one point of his career was all about connecting with his listeners. Since then, he's focused on hit records and even proving that he's the top-tier lyricist. Since the battle that he dropped out of, he's returned his focus to his listeners. A great quote that J. Cole had was, "It's not about being the best rapper alive, it's about speaking to people's lives." Once again, he's another artist that understands the importance of connecting with the listener on an emotional level, because that type of connection can't be duplicated through multiple syllables, metaphors, and punchlines. Not saying there's anything wrong with those elements, but it's a lot tougher to connect with the listener emotionally if that's all you're doing. To be honest, the Poetic and Social Commentator archetype is very scarce in today's hip-hop. With the suppression of conscious hip-hop and artists doing conscious adjacent hip-hop, the Social Commentator has been silenced. Well, I can't say silenced because we still have artists like Immortal Technique who dedicate entire albums that cover atrocities taking place all over the world. They can't censor him because he's his own boss. This man has been rapping about what's been happening in Palestine for years now. Other MCs like Vinnie Paz, Ill Bill, and Brother Ali are some other social commentators in the rap world that no one ever mentions when it comes to lyricism. Perhaps it has to do with the simpler rhyme schemes, but I feel with those topics, you don't have to do verbal gymnastics to get your point across. As I stated earlier, it's an absolute disservice to leave the poetic and social commentator out of the lyricism conversation. It's only right I start this section off by saying thank you. You could have been watching or doing something else, but instead you gave me your time, and I truly appreciate that. As a lover of hip-hop music, lyricism is at the top of the list for me when it comes to the genre. The right production with an artist that has the bars and delivery to match it is an immaculate conception in my eyes. With the battle that took place last year, it birthed a lot of platforms speaking on a genre that I love. Although some of the takes were valid, a lot of them were just flat out wrong. The person making the take was disingenuous or just wasn't a fan of the genre. I'm only speaking on the topic because it creates engagement and drives people to their platform. Some of the takes on lyricism is what really bothered me and inspired me to put this episode together. I've really heard someone say Drake out-rapped Kendrick in last year's battle, and I almost passed out. Although many are entitled to their opinion, this take was absolutely wrong. I don't want to go off on a tangent because that can be an installment all on its own. What I wanted to get across is this. I feel every aspect I discussed today is what a complete MC should be able to display. In other words, an MC who can be technical, can tell a story, be poetic, and dabble in social commentary is a complete lyricist. Artists like Conway, Kendrick, Nas, Jay-Z are just a few of the MCs I have in that lyrical tier. Guys like J.I.D., Nick Grant, Earth Gang, and Ray Vaughn are some of the newer lyricists that I've tapped into in recent years. I love to see that lyricism is no longer in the rear view. I don't know how many times that I must have said it on this platform, but when lyricism is at the forefront of hip-hop, the genre is in a beautiful space. Once again, I would like to thank you for watching this video. Hit the like button, leave a comment with some feedback, and share with other lovers of hip-hop and lyricism. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the episode. I'm DSP, and this is the Blast Podcast. Thanks for watching the video.